Today I want to talk about this surprising catalyst that makes us take this shift from dabbling or even avoiding a deepest calling that we have to actually committing to it. So this could be true for having some kind of a business project you want to do. This could be having some kind of a talent you want to actualize, or it could even be if you're stuck in a comfort zone and you want to break free, how to make that shift from dabbling or putting your toe in the water to actually pulling the trigger and doing it 100%. So to back up, when it comes to the world of purpose, we generally fall into three different categories. Category one is the people that don't know what their purpose is, or even if they have this great life purpose. Category two is that you know that there's something, this deep calling you have to do in this life, but you're not quite sure what the expression is. You can't put your finger on exactly what it looks like. Vincent van Gogh is a classic example of that, where he was struggling for years, where he had this ambition that he wanted to do something. And if you read his letters to his brother, Theo, for years he was just trying to figure out what it is, what is the final expression, until he finally found painting. And the third category are the lucky ones, we think, is that you have a deep calling and you know exactly what it is. So this is people like Michael Jordan, obviously had a natural talent for athletics, was in the world of basketball, and then went through to the NBA, and the rest is history. Or Bob Dylan, where he has this natural ability, natural talent for songwriting. He's in the music world, and he starts writing his songs, and he gets his record label. We consider them the lucky ones because it's so obvious. There's your calling, there's your path, the door's wide open, just go, just pull the trigger, just go do it. But of course, a lot of people, we don't do it. We dabble, or we, as Matthew McConaughey puts it, we half-ass it. Or we completely avoid it for years or for even decades before we finally pull the trigger and do it. Which brings me to this book that I was just reading, A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Tolls. And I was reading this book. It was recommended by an acquaintance, and I picked it up, and it's really good. I'm going through it. I wanted to know more about the author, so I started watching some videos, some interviews, and this author's story is very interesting. One, he knew in first grade that he wanted to become a writer. His teacher knew a local writer or poet that would write books for juvenile kids. He would come to the classroom and read to the kids, and he knew in that moment he loved literature, he loved wordplay, and that's what he wanted to do. So he started dabbling in that world, started writing. Fast forward, he's going to the University of Yale, and he signs up for a writing course, which is being put on by a expert, established, well-known writer called Peter Matheson. And so Peter Matheson was put on this writing course. He applied to get in. He got accepted. And during that course or that seminar, he submitted some short stories, as he was invited to do, along with the rest of the students. And after a couple of weeks, Peter called him aside and said, listen, you clearly have a talent here. You clearly could do this world of writing stories, of short stories, of being an author if you really want to. And if you're committed, I'm willing to be your mentor. And so he said yes, and he became his mentor for years and years to come. And so what happened was that a couple years pass, he's trying to sit down, I think around age 25, to write his book. It's not working. So he gets frustrated, he drops it, and he opens up a finance investment company with his friend on Wall Street. So for the next few years, he's just building the company. Again, he's not writing, but during this time, he would meet up with his mentor more or less once or twice a year for a lunch or for a dinner, and just catch up and see, how is your writing coming along? How is your book coming along? And of course, each time, Peter could tell that he wasn't doing any writing. It wasn't really moving forward. And then years pass, and there was one point where they met for dinner. They met up, and the mentor says to him, how's the book coming along? He could tell that he wasn't really writing, wasn't making any progress, was half-assing it, as we say. And he said, I think you should consider that your life as a writer is over. We all know that when artists go into Wall Street, it's typically a one-way street. Most people do not come back and return to their passion or to their art or to their talents. They kind of stay in the money world. And this phrase hit Amor Tolls, this author, hit him like a sack of bricks. He imagined he's going to reach the age 60 or 70 or 80, never having actualized this dream and this talent and this ability to be a writer and to write some books. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's what made him finally commit to every weekend he started writing, and he really took it seriously, and he really committed to this path. 7 years later, he wrote his first book. He didn't want to publish it for whatever reason, and then the next book was a bestseller. The book after that was a bestseller, and so now he's written 3 bestsellers. And so the one word that he used to describe the motivation was dread of this idea of not having actualized it. So here we have this guy who, 1, knew since he was a child he wanted to be a writer, and 2, he says he loved it more than anything else. Besides his wife and kids, it was the biggest passion in his life was writing. 3, he got validation, the stamp of approval from an industry expert, a published, well-known writer who said, listen, you have what it takes. You can do this. And 4, he mentors him. So he's able to get, potentially contacts with publishers. He's able to give him feedback on manuscripts. He has everything there. And despite all of this, he still didn't pull the trigger. He still didn't do it. It was easier to start a investment company on Wall Street than to face the blank page as an artist. So this begs the question then, what is it that stops us from committing to our dreams or to actualizing a talent that we have or getting out of our comfort zone? This is something that is being talked about a bit more commonly, I've noticed in a few different YouTube channels. For example, Chris Williamson with The Modern Wisdom, he talks about this with a video saying that committing to your purpose or committing to your passion is the most terrifying thing you can do. And the reason being is that there is no ejection seat anymore. When you commit and things get tough, you can't just jump over to another project or to another vocation. You have to ride it out, and you're really stuck in the hot seat to make it happen. You really put all your chips in. Dave Perel, I saw him on his channel talking about this, and basically when you commit to something that you're naturally good at, what you have to do is you have to kill all of the dreams of your ego. So your ego wants to maybe become this famous person, you want to make a lot of money, you have to do what or do what your parents want you to do, or this other thing that, these little false dreams that we've created for ourselves, they all have to die in exchange for the authentic one. And that can be challenging for a lot of people. It can be heartbreaking. For me, I think a lot of the reason why people do not, fulfill, and why I spend a lot of time also delaying, was because it's taxing. It takes so much out of you because there's so much on the line. Because when it's your own project, it's your own baby, it's your own thing, you want to make sure you do it justice, you do it properly, and it's going to require maybe physically, emotionally, mentally, all of your skills to really make it as best you can. And of course, there's the risk of it not working. There's the risk of it falling flat on his face, or it could also be the opportunity cost that you spend a lot of time in this one thing that you imagine is just kind of silly, just some passion thing, where you could have been spending it in another area on a more justifiable, reliable, trustable money-making source or career path. So it's that risk of losing time, it's the risk of looking stupid and failing, and all of the emotional parts with that. Stephen Pressfield, of course, talks about that it just comes down to plain resistance. That whenever we plan to upgrade in our lives, we want to improve and advance and go beyond our limitations, there's always going to be this inner resistance or this inner sabotage that's kind of causing us to trip up on ourselves. And of course, he's right. There is that also. Which brings us to the final part of this video, is what motivates us then to finally commit to our dreams or to our talents or to going beyond where we currently are. And so some people, they love what they do, and that is enough for them to move forward. Just the pure enjoyment, you can see that someone finds something they enjoy and then they're off to the races, and they don't have to deal with all this stuff. Other people, they discover that everything else except for their thing is just too damn painful. I tried doing corporate, I cannot exist in that corporate environment. I tried doing this, I just can't do it. The only real avenue left for them to make a living and to do something that doesn't torture their soul is that thing that they're feeling called to do. That can be the form of motivation. But for others, it's the situation that this author faced, which is that Maybe I'm sure that the world of Wall Street was good, the money was good, life was comfortable. He loved writing, but it wasn't enough to motivate. So the one thing that really, was the final nail in the coffin for him was this image of himself on his deathbed with dreams still in him, and just the dread of that. Which brings me to the question that David Data writes about in his book, The Way of the Superior Man. He wrote this in the context of, if you don't know what your purpose is, you don't know what your path is, you can always ask yourself this question, which is, what is it you must do or become in order to die complete? And so when you have that perspective, you are rising up above the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day life. You're getting out of the, all the fears and the small things about how I'm going to pay for rent, how I'm going to make money, how I'm going to look. And it kind of looks at your life from the big picture. And you start to see, okay, what is it here that if I was to not do this, or if I was to do this and I died, I would be okay with it, or I wouldn't be okay with it. It puts everything into perspective of what is the highest priority for you. And the natural feeling of dread is that, okay, if I don't do this and I feel dread, that emotion is there telling us something that obviously at a deep, profound level within us, that's very important for us. We have to. It's like it would be mission incomplete, unacceptable for me to die without actualizing and doing this thing. So therefore, that question, what is it I must do or become before I die, becomes a question to explore and to find out what is most important, but is also a form of motivation that says, okay, this lets me know that maybe 1, 2, 3, I don't care if I don't do this in my life and I die. But this thing here is the most important. And so it puts into perspective that, it doesn't mean you have to go and quit your job and start doing it full time. Maybe that would be the case for you. I mean, in this case of Amar Tolls, he just worked weekends. And it took him years and years before his first book was even completed. And he didn't even publish that book. So it's really, I think it's more important of committing to the path with the time that you have and the way you can. But the commitment part is the key element. So that's it for this video. I hope you found this valuable, and the relationship between dread and having the motivation to do what it is that we know we should be doing with our lives. So that's it. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.